Hi, I'm Raymond.
And I'm Claire, and welcome to today's podcast episode where we talk about mid-year check-in. Raymond, can you believe it? It's been already 6 months into 2025. It feels like time has flown by so fast.
It's amazing. Time flies, but I tell people that you are the pilot, right? And it's really important for us to know that while we have control over time, we also have control over growth, our own growth, right? And it's important for us to know that growth is not an autopilot process, but it's a very intentional thing.
I totally agree with that. And I always see growth as like you on the steering wheel driving a car to where you want to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's an important thing. And you realize it's an intentional process,
Yeah.
right?
You
Because,
can't just drive anywhere. You have to know where you're going.
well, you could drive anywhere, but ultimately you're going to, you're not going to have enough gas in the car, right? And you wouldn't get to where you want to. So I think a lot of this has to be a very intentional process. And you talked about the mid-year review.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing because that's exactly what we want to do. Are we going in the right direction, right? Let's take your analogy of driving a car. If you're driving a car and you got a GPS, you're checking in with your GPS. And why are you doing that? Because you want to be certain that you know where you're going. You want to be certain that you know where there are traffic jams and you want to circumvent that so that you can get to your location as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, having a map is always a good way to see things from above, what to expect. And I guess doing a check-in would be sort of similar to referring back to the map where we are supposed to go and in a way refer to the original intention.
And it's really important that the fact that we need to check in. Okay, so we are talking about check-ins today. Many take for granted the meaning of check-ins, right? It's like a hamster running on a wheel. Okay, you know what that is like. I mean, I personally experienced that so many times, especially in my personal life, where I'm just running around on the wheel, sometimes not even knowing where I'm getting to. It feels like a task that I keep doing over and over again without any end result to it. Okay, so I think it's really important for us to put in a little bit more effort to think about where are we now and where are we going, and making sure there is complete alignment between where we are now and where we eventually want to be.
Now that we've talked about the why it is so important, let's talk about the how. So what can you use to do a check-in in the mid-year?
It's an amazing question. And at Enible, one of the things is we talk about the self framework, SELF, right? S stands for see clearly, okay? And it's similar to collecting data, collecting insights. So seeing clearly is S. The second one is engage purposefully. Once you've collected data, how does that data link back to your original goals of where you're going? The third thing is talking about lead relationally, which talks about reflecting on connections, on how you show up with other people. All right. And the last one is to flex and to flow. And if you feel like you're not aligned to your goals, what do you need to do to correct that so that you can be in alignment to your ultimate purpose?
Ultimately, life is full of surprises, and it's how do you navigate those surprises and unexpected circumstances, right?
Yes, and it happens. You know how it happens, Claire. And for me, as a business owner, I'm constantly looking at making sure that the resources that I have is collectively value adding to the purpose of the organization, right? So checking in, and frankly, if you ask me, checking in sometimes is not just a mid-year thing. The more frequently you do it, the clearer it becomes to you that you will eventually achieve that goal.
Right, that makes so much sense. It's like if the more you refer to your GPS when you're driving a car, the more likely you are to be on track compared to if you did it much lesser. So let's say, where would you use this framework in an example?
Sure. I use this framework, the self framework, a lot with my clients. And sometimes for me, the self framework is very cyclic. It's really cyclic because I'm constantly, trying to find out what my customers need. And then I come back and I try to design a program for them. Then I have to still go back to them to get that feedback if it's aligned to them. And I can tell you most of the times, the first cut aligns, but it doesn't align totally. I've got to make further changes and I've got to come back again, so that there is a constant element of prototyping that needs to happen. So when you do check in, you're actually prototyping towards your end solution, right? Remember, ultimately we are trying to achieve the goal. Ultimately, we want to see growth, right? And this is why it's such an intentional process. The hamster that runs around the wheel, that's so autopilot, right?
Because they're just running in a circle, doing what they've always been doing every day. So the check-in would be to stop and take a look back and see what can be improved, what can be done better for the future.
Yeah. And I always like to mention this, that the hamster needs to get off the wheel and go to an elevated platform so that it has a bigger view. So it's similar to that example of zooming in and zooming out, right? If you're constantly zoomed in, then you tend to be very tactical. But here what we are talking about is the importance of being strategic in what we are trying to do, be it your personal self, be it in an organizational level. So you got to think about how to bring this together and make sure that you are in constant alignment to your ultimate goal and your ultimate purpose.
Right, I totally agree with that. Aligning with your why.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for sharing so much, Raymond, about the framework. I think it's really helpful, and I think everyone can use that in their daily life, whether it's in a work perspective or in a personal perspective.
That's great. I hope you find it helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here's the wrap. What we have talked about today is ensuring that there is constant alignment between what you do tactically and what you do strategically. And that's going to be an important thing that connects the dot between both of this. And that's one of the reasons why you're doing a media alignment.
And if all you do after this episode is to just pause for 5 minutes and check in with yourself, that's more than enough. And if you found this helpful, follow us for more tips on growth and reflection throughout the year. Stay grounded and stay growing. See you at the next one.